How's it going? It's Taking Max and we're back with a video. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to create a PowerShell Graphical User Interface app. So let's go into it. What are some of the things that you can do with the Graphical User Interface? Well, firstly, you can create apps, but what are some of the apps that we can create? Some of them can be Active Directory tasks. So for example, I created an Active Directory help desk tool for my company, and this contains tasks such as creating new users from scratch, creating new users based off an existing user, using them as a template, and putting users into a leavers form and disabling their Active Directory account, being able to ping machines that are on our domain, and so on. So other things you can also do are creating, managing, and checking virtual machines. You can create apps to do tasks on Windows operating systems, like scheduling tasks, for example. You can monitor your systems, and you can deploy patches, software, drivers to machines on your local area network. Obviously, what you want to do is completely down to you. Before we start, I would say just having a basic understanding of PowerShell, how to declare a variable, how to create some functions, I don't know, pinging something, doing an update, just literally anything. Just having the fundamentals of PowerShell is really useful, okay? So we're going to be using something called system.windows.forms, and if you know Python, this is basically a module, and if we don't add this to our code, we won't be able to use stuff like the text box, creating a window, buttons, and we won't be able to output it into a graphical user interface. So to add this, what we're going to do is add the type, and it's going to be assembly name. So this is basically saying, hey, I would like to add a module. This module is going to be, it's going to say its assembly name, and then we're going to provide it with the assembly name. So the assembly name is system.windows.forms. Great. So now all we need to do is to declare a variable and create our window. So I'm going to call our window the app container because it's going to contain everything to do with our app within it. So app container equals, and then we are going to do this every time we create a new object or group control. We are going to need to declare that it's a new object. So to declare a new object, we do new object system.windows.forms.form. So the form is actually just the window itself. Okay, and when you create new objects of stuff, whether it's a label, which is just displaying text, it would be system.windows.forms dot label, for example, and that would create a label. But as we're creating the actual just window so far, we're going to do system.windows.forms.form. So if we're now to run it, we are going to actually get an error, and that is because I have spelt system wrong. So make sure you're spelling everything correctly when you're running it, and we will run it again. And basically what it'll do is it'll run the code and then it will stop, because as we can see, it actually runs the script and then it stops because it doesn't display anything so far. So to make the actual window display, what we are going to do is get app container. We're going to say app container dot show dialog, and this basically will present the form, and the form is the window. So now if we see, as we can see, we've got a blank window that displays, and it has nothing on it at the moment. So now what I'd like to do is actually say, hey, this is going to be the Techie Tools app I am creating. So I would like to give the window name where it will display at the top. I'd like it to say Techie Tools. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to say app container dot text is equal to Techie Tools. And if we were to run it again, we can see at the top, and now that my application window has Techie Tools at the top. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note of this. Add name to the window. And let's continue. So when someone runs my app, okay, what we're going to create in this video is a basic application where you can enter a website and it's going to ping it and display what your ping is to that website or domain. Right, so we're going to do the ping label is equal to a new object, because we need to now print out text, and the text is going to go enter domain, and then it's going to have a colon, and then below it we'll put a text box. But let's start off with just displaying the label. So new object, and it's going to be system.windows.forms.label. And now if we take the ping label and we assign it .text, we can say we would like it to be called enter IP address or domain. And now if we're to run this, as you can see, it's not actually incorporated into the application yet. And that's because for every group control that we create, we need to add it into the app container. Okay, so if we take the app container variable and we do .controls.add, as the ping label is a new control, we will put in the brackets the variable name. So we do ping label, and now in the app container, ping label will now display. So if we are to run it again, as you can see, it says enter IP address or domain, but the text actually wraps around itself. So what we're going to do is make it auto size. So it's going to automatically just be on one line and automatically size itself rather than just being in a small box. So if we go back to ping label, we can do ping label dot auto size is equal to $true, and we use $true rather than just true because whether something is true or false, it's already a prefixed variable, so it already exists. It's going to be true or false. So now if we are to run it again, as you can see, it is all on one line. But the window, it's a bit small, isn't it? If we were going to create an application, we need to make it larger. So to make the application screen larger, we are going to go back down. So to do this, we are going to call the app container variable again, and then we are going to change the app container's client size. So before we continue with that, all I'm just going to say is when we do dot, there's a lot of things that you can modify. For example, you can change the back color, the fore color, and so on. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and I would look into just the PowerShell online documentation to see the full scope of stuff. And it's the system.windows.forms module you'll be looking into. So going back to it, for client sizes or any sort of size where you declare the size of it, it's always going to be width by height. Okay, so it's always going to be the first number that you put in is going to be the width, then you'll put a comma and to separate it, and then you put the height. So I'm going to say I would like it to be 800 pixels by 600. And after running it, we can see that we've got an error. So let's go through this quickly so we can actually troubleshoot it together, so you can also see my thought process behind it. So it's saying the property client size cannot be found on this object. Verify that the property exists and can be set. And the reason why this has happened is because I spelled app container wrong, and it's app container. So if we're to run it again, we will actually see that the size has now changed. There we go. It's now 800 wide by 600 above. And then this is in pixel dimensions as well. Cool. So now we've got the text and it says enter our IP address or domain. We're going to want a text box where we can actually input information into it to say, hey, I'd like to ping google.com. So now we need to create a text box. Okay, and I'm going to call the text box get domain or IP, and it's going to be a new object because we're creating a new control within the application, and we're going to do system.windows.forms. And for this we are going to use a text box. Now, so we've created the text box and we are going to say get domain or IP. So now that we've created the text box, obviously if we were to run it now, it's not going to be added to the app container. So if we were to go back and do app container controls add, and then we were to do a comma and then the new variable, which is get domain or IP, we were to run it again, we can see that nothing now displays. But why is this? The reason for this is because once you've added more than one control, you need to add a range of them. So if we are to go back now and then do where it says on line 32 app container controls add, we need to add range, and then we need to do this where we do an additional bracket with an @ sign, and then we need to close it. So it looks like this. So you'll need to do this and then place the variable inside of this. So the reason why we have to add these additional brackets to it is because when you add a single variable, it's not classed as an array. But when you add multiple variables, it's passed through it as an array. So you need to use this so it can actually read the variables correctly. So if we do it now, as we can see, there's a new text box. It is behind the enter IP address. So how are we going to move the location? So to move the location of an item, this could be for anything. You can move this for labels or text boxes or so on. Anything, any controls that are within the app window. So we're going to do .location is equal to. So this is basically saying everything will start off at 0, 0, which is at the top left of your screen of the window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it down by, I'm going to move it by 5 pixels width-wise. So I'm going to move it to the right 5, and I'm going to move it down 10. I think that should be enough to avoid it overlapping with the text. There we go. As we can see, we can start to see it now, but we're also going to need to move it down a bit more. So I'm going to say I'd like to bring it down 20 height. There we go. So now we've got a text box, and that is great. So enter your IP address, google.com. That's great. I can push it in there, but I won't be able to actually do anything with it yet. And the reason for this is we need to create a button, and on that button we can get the input from the text box and then do stuff with it. So let's create a button. So now we are going to do submit button is equal to a new object, system.windows.forms.button. Great. And I'm just going to say that the button text should say submit, and that it should auto size, so we don't have any issues with that. And we're going to say auto size is true. So now if we add submit button into the controls add range, we are submit button. Now let's run it again. There we go. As we can see, it is in the background. It is very, very hard to see. So we also need to move the location of it. I'd say because we had to move the get domain or IP label 20 down, I'm going to double it, and we're going to say that the location should be 5 pixels across and 40 pixels down. Now let's run that. As we can see a submit button. Just for my own pet peeve, I'm going to move it down 45 just so there is a bit more gap. Great. Okay. Perfect. So now if we run it again, we enter google.com and submit, nothing happens to the button. It is just a visual button so far. So let's add some functionality to it. On submit, what should we do? Okay, into it we need to add a click event. So that means every time submit is clicked, it can actually do something. So we're going to do add underscore click, and then we're going to do a bracket, and then within that we are going to use these. What we will do is submit the button, the submit button variable. We're going to do .add underscore click. Then we're going to use parentheses and brackets. And then within that, we can actually do stuff. So for example, if it was to submit a button, once it's clicked, we could write to the host saying button has been clicked. If I could spell it right, that would be useful. And if we're to now run it again, and I click submit, you can see at the bottom right where the terminal is, the button has been clicked, okay? So we are going to do on submit, we need an area for it to be outputted into. So we're going to create a new label, Okay, so this new label is going to be results label is equal to a new object, system.windows.forms.label. Okay, and now this label, we're going to add some, we're going to auto size it, and we're going to say auto size is true. We're going to set the location to, let's set it to, we got 45 there, which is 25 pixels below. Let's set it to 65. Okay, so we want it to be 5 across, and then we want it to be at 65 pixels down. Obviously, we have not added it yet, so we will add it to our controls. Now, if we run it again, it's not displaying because we haven't added text to it. So let's add some text to it. Is equals to ping is equal to let's just call it results. So currently we can see that it just says results dot 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 dot. I'm going to make it 75 pixels so it displays better. There we go, results dot 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 dot. So you can display this in the text box or a different way of doing it, but this is just the principle itself of once we submit, doing a function and then representing it visually. Okay, so now on the get domain or IP, as it's a text box, we can say right host. And we can say, okay, this is the domain. So we can declare the variable before. So we will do get domain or IP. And we're going to say that, okay, so domain to ping is equal to the get domain or IP. And now we're going to need to do .text as we're getting the text from within the text box, okay? So now we can write host and say domain to ping is, and then $ domain to ping. Now if we run this again, and I put in, hey, I want to ping google.com and submit it. As you can see at the bottom right, it's going to say domain to ping is google.com. Now the reason why this is useful is because when we go to actually ping a website, we are going to now use the variable domain to ping. As it is stored the information from within the text box. So now we are going to update where it says results. So removing all the right host text now, we're going to just keep it as the domain to ping is equal to the text from get domain or IP. So this gets the entered text from the text box. And now we want to update results label when we've actually pinged it. So we're going to say we want to results update is equal to ping. We can then write to the host just to check that everything's working. We'll write to the host and say results update. Now, if we run it again, we are going to do google.com and submit. Give it a moment to run. And as we can see, we're getting some information back about it. So pinging google.com with 32 bytes, etc. And we can change the results updates to this specifically. So all it's basically doing is it's testing the connection to the ping that we provide, to the domain that we provide. It's only doing one count, and if there's any error, it will stop. Okay, and now this is just saying, can we get the ping time from the results, and all it's going to give us back is the response time. So when we go to update it, we're going to say results update. Instead of results update, we are going to say domain to ping is equal to, and then we're going to say plus, and then we're going to do equals space, and then we're going to do the dollar, which is ping time. Great. Now if we run it again and just ping google.com, great. So this is a simple way to fix it. In this specific example, we're just doing a test connection and we're only counting one ping. And if there's an error, we're going to stop it. And then we are creating a new variable called ping time. And the ping results, we are just getting the response time from it. And then we're outputting it saying, hey, this is the domain. And then it's equal to this ping. We could also add equals ping plus, and then just to make it look a bit nicer, ms. Cool. So if we run that again, we'll see that google.com is a 9 millisecond ping response. So that is basically how you can create a graphical user interface module, create a window, add the text and label, add a text box, and then receive the text box and input and output it visually. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you feel I can improve any way, I'm missing anything, or want me to cover something in the next video, be sure to drop it down in the comments down below. Any likes, comments, and subscribers are appreciated. Peace.